This lecture is like a piece of heaven because it's teaching us about our universe. And so my question is, when we get to heaven, are we going to travel the universe? How are we going to do that? Is it going to be in another dimension? Are we going to time travel? Are we going to, how's that going to happen?
Okay. First of all, I don't know. but really, there are some hints. That's a good question. The scripture says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And that's a real dimension. That's the person who lives within the body. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Scripture also says we will rule and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. But it also says in Revelation 22, verse 5, that after that millennium is past and the great white throne judgment occurs and the eternal destiny of man is declared, each man, each person, we will rule and reign with him forever. Wow. So the Bible does describe in a physical dimension, after he is remade, see, we wrecked these, didn't we? We messed these up. He's going to remake the heavens and the earth. These are going, Peter said, Peter was a nuclear physicist. The first mention in all of history that atoms could disintegrate into nuclear reaction. The first mention. David Bassett, do you know, you're a scholar, do you know of any other mention outside the Bible previous to that subatomic particles were capable of nuclear fission or fusion?
I do not.
Second Peter chapter 3. Right. Would you answer?
2 Peter chapter 3, verses 7 through 12, verse 10 specifically, mentions the dissolving of the universe. And in Greek, that word is sunestasa, which means to dissolve.
To dissolve, yes.
And so basically, God's going to separate the atomic bonds one from another.
Yes.
And allow that energy to purge the universe of the sin which permeates it. And then God will bring it back together. It doesn't seem to indicate he's going to start from scratch. He's just going to purge this universe.
Correct. But the elements will melt with fervent heat, so you have nuclear fusion, nuclear fission. So the question is, do you as a scholar know of any mention prior to that physics was capable of nuclear fusion or fission?
I do not.
The scripture said it first. So all of that shows, thank you. We will, if we're going to rule, first of all, we're not going to rule over the Jews. You just try to rule over a Jew. You've lost by walking in the door. And we have some folks with Jewish extraction in this audience, but there's a special nature that God gave the Jewish people. Jesus can, and he will, when they see the wounds in his hands. Jesus will rule over them. But we're not going to rule over them. We have a universal dimension. So yes, we're going to be able to travel throughout the universe. Now, how fast can we travel? Well, there's an indication of how fast we will be able to travel. It won't be at the speed of light. It's too slow. 186,282.0244866 miles per second. That's faster than a 4-year-old kid can tear up a toy, which is pretty fast on its own. It won't be the speed of light, because since God has stretched out the fabric of the universe, it could be 20 billion light years to the most distant galaxy. But it didn't take 20 billion years for them to get there. God stretched it all out, all within the 6,000 year perimeter. So the facts of science are measured by scriptural statements and met by scriptural statements. Okay, so how fast are we going to be able to travel? There's an indication there. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And when Moses and Elijah appeared physically on the earth, and Jesus talked with them, how long did it take them to get from heaven to earth? the moment Jesus was ready, they were here. That's on the Mount of Transfiguration. Jesus is kind of awesome, you know. I've got to publish this book on who he really was. Pray for me that I'll be able to. The text is 90% ready. Okay, so in answer to your question, you put it all together. That means that God empowers under the certain conditions for there to be time travel at the speed of concept, the speed of thought, concept. You think it, you're there. And when we are totally, symphonically synchronized with God's will, we'll be like Jesus, for we shall see him as he is. When we are in total harmony with his will, if he wants us to go, what are we going to rule and reign over? Not each other. I don't want to rule over you. And I don't want you to rule over me. And he doesn't want to either. We're not going to rule over each other. Some of the old theologians believed that every living system that God originally created, 1 Corinthians 15 speaks of the dimensions, our spiritual resurrection, our physical resurrection. We were resurrected spiritually the moment we received Christ. We will be resurrected physically from the grave. And then it speaks of celestial resurrection. And then there's a category, I don't know particularly which verse, but you could read it. There's a category which involves the rest of the physical creation and resurrection. Many of the old conservative theologians, Ironside and others, believed that God was going to resurrect our pets, our animals, and that in God's ultimate universe there will be planets where they will live. I'd like to play among puppy dogs where I had a little Springer Spaniel named Happy, black and white, long ears. I'd like to play with him again. And the concept is possible that favorite horse that you had to put down, God will bring back to life, because God's going to bring our bodies back to life. So, we will not rule over each other. We won't rule over the Jews. We'll rule in perfect symphony with him throughout the physical universe. And I'm looking forward to that.